Cebu City was alive with noise and motion, but somewhere among the honking tricycles and the scent of street food, a young boy's voice rose above the chaos. 16-year-old Marco stood barefoot on the edge of a busy sidewalk, clutching a worn-out microphone connected to a small speaker. His voice was clear and full of emotion, singing songs he had learned from an old radio at home. People walking by slowed their steps, drawn in by the unexpected beauty of his sound. Vendors leaned on their stalls to listen, and even the bus drivers stopped for a moment, nodding to the rhythm. Marco didn't notice the growing crowd. His eyes were closed, his mind lost in the music. Every note carried a piece of his struggle, the hunger, the sleepless nights, and the dreams he dared not speak aloud. When the song ended, a few people clapped and dropped coins into the open box at his feet. He smiled shyly, thanked them, and continued singing. It wasn't much, but every coin mattered. At night, he and his mother counted the day's earnings under the dim light of their one-room home. She worked at a small eatery during the day, washing dishes for a few pesos, and Marco sang because it was the only gift he could offer to help. "Someday, Mama," he said one evening, his voice quiet but certain. "People will know my voice." She smiled at him and brushed his hair back. "They already do, my son. They already do." The next day, something unexpected happened. A tourist from London, moved by Marco's voice, recorded a short video of him singing a Whitney Houston song. He uploaded it to social media with the caption, "The voice of an angel from the streets of Cebu." Within hours, the video began spreading. Thousands of people shared it, amazed that such a powerful sound came from a young boy with no training, no stage, and no shoes. Marco didn't know any of this. He just kept singing, unaware that his life was about to change forever. 2 weeks later, a message arrived through the local mayor's office. It was from a representative of Britain's Got Talent, inviting Marco to audition in London after seeing his viral video. His mother could hardly believe it. She read the letter again and again, tears forming in her eyes. "They want you, Marco," she whispered. "They want to hear you sing." The excitement was quickly replaced by fear. They had no passports, no money for travel, and barely enough food for the week. But Marco refused to give up. "If God opened this door," he told her, "we will find a way to walk through it." The news spread through the community like wildfire. People who had once walked past him without a glance now stopped to encourage him. A teacher helped with the paperwork, a local business donated to his travel fund, and the small church held a concert to raise money. Day by day, the dream that once felt impossible started to take shape. When the plane ticket finally arrived, Marco held it carefully, afraid it might disappear if he blinked too long. It was his first time leaving the island, his first time stepping beyond the world he knew. On the morning of his flight, the entire neighborhood gathered at the small Cebu airport. His mother hugged him tightly, tears running down her cheeks. "Remember who you are," she said softly. "No matter how big the stage, you're still my boy who sang on the streets." Marco nodded, trying not to cry. As the plane lifted into the sky, he pressed his face to the window, watching his city shrink beneath the clouds. For the first time, he felt both fear and hope collide in his chest. Somewhere far ahead lay London, the biggest stage in the world. But in his heart, he carried Cebu, every sound, every face, every prayer. The boy who once sang for coins was now flying toward a destiny he could barely imagine, his voice ready to silence the world. When Marco stepped onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent, it felt like walking into another world. The lights were blinding, the audience stretched endlessly in front of him, and the air was thick with expectation. He could barely believe this was real. Just a few months ago he had been singing on the streets of Cebu, barefoot and hungry. Now he stood in London, surrounded by cameras and the judges he had only seen on TV. Simon Cowell looked at him curiously, leaning forward with that famous half-smile. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Marco swallowed hard, clutching the microphone with trembling hands. "My name is Marco, and I'm from Cebu, Philippines," he said softly. The crowd erupted in cheers, a wave of support that gave him courage. Simon nodded. "All right, Marco. Show us what you've got." The music began, the first soft piano notes of "You Raise Me Up." Marco closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The moment he started singing, the room changed. His voice, rich and angelic, filled every corner of the theater. Every word carried the weight of his struggles, every note told the story of his life. People stopped breathing, some wiped tears from their eyes. His voice soared higher, stronger, pure with emotion. By the time he reached the final chorus, the audience was already on its feet, clapping and cheering through their tears. When the song ended, silence fell for a brief, sacred moment before the entire hall exploded in applause. Simon stood, looking moved. "Marco," he said quietly, "that was one of the most powerful auditions I've ever seen." The young boy from Cebu could only cry, overwhelmed by emotion, as the judges praised his courage, humility, and voice that came straight from heaven. As Marco stood there shaking, something incredible happened. Judge Amanda Holden leaned forward, her eyes shining. Without a word, she slammed her hand down on the golden buzzer. In an instant, gold confetti burst into the air and rained down on Marco like a shower of dreams. He gasped, covering his face as tears streamed down his cheeks. The audience roared, the judges stood clapping, and even Simon smiled proudly. Amanda walked up to him, hugged him, and whispered, "You deserve this, sweetheart. The world needs to hear your voice." Marco couldn't stop crying. It was too much, the noise, the lights, the joy. He thought of his mother watching from Cebu, of his neighbors who helped send him here, of the street where it all began. Somewhere, across the ocean, his mother screamed with joy as she watched the moment live on television. People in their little community gathered around their small TV, cheering and crying together. Their boy had done it. That golden buzzer moment went viral overnight. The clip was replayed on news channels around the world. Comments flooded social media. The voice that silenced the world, a reminder that talent knows no borders, and, from poverty to glory. In just one night, Marco became a global sensation. Interview requests poured in, music producers reached out, and celebrities tweeted about him. But Marco stayed humble. He called his mother after the show, his voice trembling. "Mama, they gave me the golden buzzer," he said. She cried on the phone, whispering prayers of gratitude. "I told you, son. The world will know your voice." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Marco was invited to meet the show's producers, stylists, and vocal coaches. He was given a hotel room overlooking the city, his first time sleeping in a bed with white sheets and warm blankets. Yet, even with all the luxury, he missed the sounds of Cebu, the laughter of children in the street, and his mother's voice. But every time he felt lonely, he would remember the confetti falling, the crowd cheering, and Amanda's words echoing in his heart. He knew he wasn't just singing for himself anymore. He was singing for every child who had ever dreamed beyond hunger, for every voice that had gone unheard. Marco from Cebu had arrived, and the world would never forget him. The weeks after the golden buzzer were the most intense days of Marco's life. Suddenly, everything changed. The streets of Cebu were replaced by studio lights, rehearsals, and interviews. The fame was thrilling but heavy. Cameras followed him, fans waited outside the studio, and people from around the world sent him letters. Yet behind every smile, Marco battled the quiet ache of missing home. He missed his mother's cooking, the humid air of Cebu, and the sound of rain on the tin roof. The pressure of the semi-finals loomed over him, and some nights, he couldn't sleep. He would sit by the hotel window, looking out at the glowing London skyline, whispering to himself, "You can do this. You're still that same boy from the streets." During rehearsals, Marco struggled with nerves. The production team had chosen "Someone You Loved" by Louis Capaldi for his semi-final performance, a song full of pain and emotion. But when he tried to sing, his voice cracked under pressure. He broke down backstage, tears streaming down his face. "I don't think I can do this," he whispered to his vocal coach. "Everyone expects so much. What if I fail?" The coach placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're not here because of luck, Marco. You're here because your voice touches hearts. Don't sing to impress. Sing to feel." That night, he called his mother. Her voice over the phone was calm and full of love. "My son," she said softly, "you have already won in my heart. Remember why you sing, not for fame, but for hope." Those words stayed with him. When he stepped onto the stage the next evening, he carried them in his heart like armor. As the first notes played, the world faded away. His voice started soft, trembling with vulnerability, then rose with emotion. The song's lyrics spoke of loss, of love, of longing, and through every word, he sang his life story. The audience felt it. By the final chorus, many were wiping away tears. Simon Cowell stood first, clapping slowly, his eyes glistening. That, he said into the mic, wasn't just a song. That was a message. You reminded us what real music feels like. Marco bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. The results came in later that night. He had made it to the finals. The audience cheered as his name was announced, and he could hardly believe it. From the dusty streets of Cebu to the biggest stage in the world, he had done what once felt impossible. Finals week was a blur of preparation, interviews, and emotions. Everyone expected something extraordinary. Marco decided to perform an original song, one he had written late at night in Cebu, home. It was a song about his mother, about love, about finding light in dark places. When the night finally arrived, Marco walked onto the stage in a simple white suit. The lights dimmed, and the piano began to play softly. He closed his eyes and let the words flow. When the nights were cold, you held me near. When I was lost, your voice was clear. Home is where you are, Mama. His voice trembled, then soared higher, wrapping the entire theater in warmth and emotion. The judges sat in silence, completely moved. When the final note faded, the crowd rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Simon Cowell stood with a rare smile and said, "You've silenced the world tonight." Marco didn't win first place that night, but it didn't matter. The moment was bigger than any trophy. He had sung his truth, and millions had felt it. A few months later, he returned to Cebu, where the entire community gathered to welcome him home. The airport was filled with banners, flags, and cheers. His mother stood at the front, tears in her eyes as she embraced her son. He held her tight and whispered, "We did it, Mama." The boy who once sang for coins now sang for the world. Yet, standing back in his neighborhood, surrounded by the people who had believed in him from the start, Marco realized that he had never really left home. His voice had carried Cebu with him all along, and now that voice belonged to everyone who still dared to dream.